These findings highlight that resilience in disability is multifactorial. It is an interplay between personality traits, adaptation, and social environment. A community or NGO adds to one's psychological capitals of hope, where shared experiences and feelings of gratitude broaden and build psychological capabilities over time. In the process, participants' narratives often change over time with increased acceptance of their situation, thus weaving stories of strength that inspire us. Thank you.
Paper. Then let me call Ms. Imna Sanglati Chankia and Dr. Heroga K. Yatuk on paper presenting Empowering Chanki Women Through Pottery. Is Ms. Chankija or present here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, you can present it.
Okay, thank you. So is my slide visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Respected chairperson, my fellow presenters, my name is Imla Samlati Jankija, and I am a PhD research scholar, Department of Sociology from St. Joseph University, Dimapur. The topic for my presentation is entitled Economic Empowerment of Chunky Women Through Pottery. Okay, so to begin with, let me just briefly highlight the meaning of empowerment and economic empowerment. So empowerment is an active multidimensional process which would enable women to realize their full identity and powers in all spheres of life. It would consist in providing greater access to knowledge and resources, greater autonomy in decision making, greater ability to plan their lives, greater control over circumstances that influence their lives, and freedom from the shackles imposed on them by customs, belief, and practice. So the term empowerment is a multidimensional social process, and it helps people gain control over their own lives. Now, women who are economically empowered, they contribute more to their families, societies, and national economies. A woman is economically empowered when she has both the ability to succeed and advance economically and the power to make and act on economic decisions. So, economically empowering women is essential both to realize women's rights and to achieve broader developmental goals such as economic growth, poverty reduction, health, education, and welfare. Now, economic empowerment is one of the most powerful routes for women to achieve their potential and advance their rights. Now, the objective of the study, I have three objectives. The first is to study how pottery has been important historically in Changi village. The second one is to examine the role that pottery plays in economically empowering women in Changi. And the third one is to identify difficulties faced by the potters. Now, this research, the research design for this paper is descriptive research design, and the researcher has made use of both primary as well as secondary data. For the primary data, the interview method has been conducted in order to collect the informations, and for the secondary data, books and articles have been referred to. Okay, so the area of study is in Changi village. So I'm just showing the map of Northeast and the map of Nagaland. So Changi village is a village in Nagaland. So Nagaland is the 16th state of India, situated in the northeastern region, and the population of Nagaland is almost entirely tribal. There are 17 major tribes, each occupying a distinct geographical area. Like other inhabitants of northeastern region, the Nagas too have their share of legends and folklores regarding their origin and evolution through ages. Changi is an Ao a Naga tribe village situated at the Champukong range. The village is a part of the Mangkolamba Circle and is 40 kilometers from the district headquarters of Mokchung. Now, pottery in Nagaland. The traditional art of pottery in Nagaland is confined to only a few villages among the Angkamis, Aus, Jakasang, Rangma, Ziliang, Sema, Losa, Konyak, Chang, Sangtam, Kimingan, and Pom tribes. Pottery is not a widely practiced craft in Nagaland, and it is restricted to women. The revolving wheel is not used, and the Naga tribal women have their own unique method of making pottery with hands. Usually, the techniques vary according to the tribes and the geographical areas they inhabit. Now, pottery is among the Aus. So the Aos are one of the major tribes in Nagaland. So this pottery, even though now it is an almost extinct art, it was also one of the artistic skills of our women. But expertise in this art was confined to a few villages where only women of certain class were privileged to practice it. Among the Aos, Chanki, Chapu, and Longchimtang villages have been the only villages that made pots. Um, these pots were not too elaborate in design, and they were quite limited in the range of shapes. But this was necessarily an art which met the needs of the of the society. So one interesting aspect of this art is that in it, no potter's wheel is used. Instead, tools like spatula, cone, etc. are used. The pots are dried in the sun and later fired in the earthen kilns banked by dried wood. Among the Aos, pot making is an exclusive domain of women folk. Now, pottery in Changi village. Pot making, as practiced by the Changi women, is an ancient art based on indigenous knowledge and preserved by the women and handed down through the generations. Traditionally, pot making was considered as a taboo in other our villages besides Chanki, Chapu, and Longchimtang. One significant feature is that this activity has always been exclusively confined to women. Another interesting feature is that there has been no incorporation of modern techniques in the pot making procedure. The same procedure and the same tools are replicated even in today's modern times. The continuity of the craft in its original form signifies that the value of the pot has not diminished, and since the earthen pot has always brought additional income to the women, the craft of pot making remains undiluted by the passage of time. Now, the pot making process is very simple. The pots are very simple, and they are basically objects of utility. So, in the olden times, the earth was dug from a place called Litu. This is 16 kilometers away from the village. Now, recently, a new source of the earth has been found at a place called Impotsan. Now, digging, collecting, transporting of the earth, and making of the pots is exclusively handled by the women folks. Now, these pots made of earth are shaped with sticks of wood and bamboo and then are baked in open fire. So I'm just showcasing some pictures of the pot making process. In order to save time, I will not be reading all the informations in the pictures. So this is the first step. Then after this, these are the implements that people still today make use of in order to make their pots. And these are the different types of pots that are produced in the village. So depending on their size, they are also used for different purposes. Now, coming to the historical importance of pottery in Jangi village, the first historical importance is about barter system. So this pottery has been a very important item of exchange. In the olden times, when pot making was considered taboo for the our tribe, and the head hunting was normal, Traveled immense distance through dangerous terrains just to barter various goods such as cloth made of homespun yarn, vegetables, implements, and other useful items considered valuable in those days, just to get a year's supply of pot made in Changi. The pot makers thrived and business was conducted at their doorstep. Even in those days, pot making was a secondary economic activity, as subsistence agriculture in the form of jhum cultivation was the primary economic activity, but the returns from pot making was more rewarding. It is said that in the ancient times, when inter-village rivalries leading to open hostilities were frequent, Changi village was spared because of the fear that if the potters of the village were killed, the whole tribe would suffer for want of this important item of daily use. The second historical importance is relating to diplomatic relations. The earthen pot was also a symbol of diplomatic relations that sealed friendship between neighboring villages. The earthen pot was gifted to visiting dignitaries and important leaders. The third importance is that in the olden days, when houses were made of bamboo slats and walls with thatched roof, disasters such as fire was rather common during the windy season, and as the houses were built close to each other, the fire usually swept through the village. During such times, it has been said that Changi people, as a gesture of goodwill, help and sympathy, donated pots to the other villages when such disasters struck. The fourth historical importance of pottery is that it fosters friendship and alliances. The earthen pot served not only as an important and viable economic factor for individual families, but was also used by church and village council to foster friendship and alliances. Economic empowerment through pottery. The simple pots brought about economic empowerment to women. Before modern utensils like the aluminium pots and pans made inroads into the village, the earthen pots were the only utensils used. Thus, the thriving pot making cottage industry brought renown to the villages that were practicing it. But it can be mentioned that Changi village was the pots made in Changi village was more famous. This could be because of the location of Changi village, as it was more central and accessible. The flourishing pot making activity meant that every household had surplus of almost everything they needed, and people could in turn barter away the surplus for salt and other essential goods in markets down in the plains. So this meant that parents could afford to send their children out of the village to schools for education, not only in the primary, middle, or higher levels, but even for specialization in fields like medicine, engineering, agriculture, theology, etc. So, uh, even in today's time, pot makers enjoy a great deal of economic gains through their craft. These simple pots are huge in demand even now. The pots are sought
Okay.
with varying
Miss, can you
prices.
wind up your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, I'll just go to my findings and then conclude. So even today, traditionally, pot making has been exclusively a woman's domain, but it was found through this study that today even men are taking interest in learning this craft and are trained. This implies that the gender role demarcation are slowly but surely changing. Now, other organizations out of the village are also taking interest and are working earnestly towards reviving and preserving this ancient craft. Um, uh, Pot makers are enthusiastic about transferring their knowledge about pot making to whoever is interested in order to ensure that this craft continues to be practiced. It was also found through this study that every year in the month of March, the Women's Department of the Church organizes a Thanksgiving service. So, in conclusion, pottery has given not only the women potters but Changi village a distinct cultural identity, renowned through the region, and a very lucrative business. Through the ages, women potters have told and retold the stories, keeping alive the memory of pot making in particular, and who they see themselves in relation to the craft. So the craft of pot making has empowered the women and given them a sense of purpose. Thank you.
Well, okay, I will be taking over from here. And if you have any questions regarding the paper presenters or any such questions, you can leave your messages in the chat box. And moving on to the next presenter, let us call Vaishnavi Singh. The topic is Buddhist scroll paintings and outdoor ceremonies in Korea and Ladakh. You can start your presentation. Vaishnavi Singh, are you present? If not, we can move to the next. Primate Diplomacy of India, presented by Wilram Lianisilo and Dr. J.C. Zolwantanga. You can start your presentation. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, miss. We can hear you.
Miss Wilram Lianisilo, you can start your presentation if Vaishnavi Singh is not present.
I think they are not online. You can call next, miss.
Uh, I, we can move on to the next topic then. Social and emotional learning embedded pedagogy for development of well-rounded individual. Dr. Madhurima Chakraborty, are you there? Dr. Madhurima. It seems like the paper presenters are not present. So we can move on to the next, I believe. Cecily VL Vatpui, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can start your paper. The topic is fertility, education, and family planning in Mizoram.
Okay, ma'am. I'll start sharing my screen, okay?
Okay.
Hello. Miss, is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. You can start.
Okay, I will start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cecilia Radpui. I'm a research scholar from the Department of Geography and Resource Management from Mizoram University. And today I will be presenting on the topic of fertility, education, and family planning in Mizoram. First of all, I would like to say in my introduction part that there has been many changes in fertility over a period of many years along the years in India as well as in other parts of the country, which has also happened in Mizoram. And the fertility has been constantly declining from 2.3 in NFHS1, which is conducted in the year 1992 to 1993 to 1.9 in NFHS5, which is the National Family Health Survey, which is conducted in 2019 to 2021. So this means that there is a decreasing in total fertility rate from 2.3 to 1.9 during a period of around 20 years. And there could have been many reasons for this declining trend in fertility, and there could, among many other reasons, for family planning and education could be one of the biggest reasons. And Mizoram, I think some of us have already known that family planning and contraceptive use are kept on a large scale, although majority of the community are Christian. And among women, literacy rate of women in Mizoram is also quite high. And thus, by prioritizing education and family planning, communities can empower women, leading to healthier families and a more informed society that is better equipped to navigate the complexities of reproductive health. So I have chosen this topic as it is very interesting to understand the various factors associated with fertility and which could have an impact on this fertility. The main objective of this research paper is the first one is to analyze the trends of fertility in Mizoram and its relations with the use of contraceptives. The second one is to analyze the trends of knowledge and use of family planning in Mizoram. The third one is to analyze the relationship between fertility, education, and family planning in Mizoram. Data and methodologies used for this research paper is mainly from data from the National Family Health Survey from NFHS 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where we could better understand the fertility, education, and family planning in Mizoram. And these data are further utilized using statistical analysis, statistical methods, and by far using SPSS, Pearson's correlation of coefficient of correlation is used for analyzing the relationship between all these different variables. Let us first look into the first finding, which is the total fertility rate. We can see from the table that NFHS 1 in 1992 to 1993, it is 2.3. It has an increase in the next survey data, which is in 1998 to 1999. It has increased to 2.9. In NFHS 3, it is also 2.9, NFHS 4, 2.3, and NFHS 5, 1.9. So we can see from the graph that the fertility rate, although there are some changes in the earlier periods, we can see that it has been constantly declining from time to time. And the next slide is about the knowledge of contraceptive methods among currently married women who are aged around 15 to 49 in Mizoram. Here is the table from the latest data from NFHS 5, which is in 2019 to 2021. And we can see that the knowledge is quite universal in Mizoram. Any method known by women is 99.5, and any modern method known by women is also 99.5, among which the popular ones are female fertilization, pills, IUDs, and condoms. And also traditional methods are also, the knowledge is also quite universal. However, it is a little bit lower than the modern method, in which in case of the traditional method, withdrawal is one of the most common. And let us move on to the next slide, which shows us the use of contraceptive methods in Mizoram. This is the trends. This table shows us the trends from NFHS 1 to NFHS 5, where we can see any method, the use is declining. Although there is a little bit of increase from NFHS 1 to NFHS 3, it has been constantly declining till NFHS 5. It has also happened in any modern method or in traditional method. And we can further understand that although the knowledge is quite universal among married women in Mizoram, we can see that the actual use of contraceptive methods or family planning in Mizoram is quite low. This is the graph for the use of contraceptive methods or family planning in Mizoram, the comparison between the knowledge, any method, any modern method, and any traditional method. The next one shows us the female literacy rate and fertility. So in terms of education, two variables have been taken, which are female literacy rate and schooling. The first one is female literacy rate, and we can see that among all the districts of Mizoram, the fertility rate is quite high, and female literacy rate in Mizoram has also increased considerably from NFHS 1 to NFHS 5. So we can see that there is different kinds of development among women, which may empower women to have an open mindedness and to have education and to make their own decisions. The next slide shows us the schooling and fertility, the relationship between these two variables, where we can see that in no schooling, the total fertility rate is 2.8. Less than 5 years of schooling complete is 2.8. 5 to 9 years complete is 2.3 children per woman. 10 to 11 years complete of schooling is 2.1, and 12 or more years complete is 1.4. Where from this line graph, we can see that the total fertility rate is decreasing when the number of schooling is increasing, which shows that women are more empowered and they have their own decision to take advantage of their education and make their own mind. The next one shows us, this is the statistical analysis of the total unmet need. Let me first explain the total unmet need. The total unmet need means those people who do not want any more children, however, they do not take any steps to prevent them from getting pregnant. So using the Pearson correlation of coefficient from SPSS, we can see that it is minus 0.226, which shows us that there is a strong negative correlation between total unmet need. The next one is the correlation between total fertility rate and female literacy rate, where we can see that minus 0.2.50, which shows weak negative correlation. As female literacy rate increases, fertility rate decreases. However, the strength is quite low. The next table shows us the correlations between the total fertility rate and use of family planning, where we can see that there is a strong positive correlation of 0.865, which shows us that as the use of family planning or contraceptive use decreases, fertility also decreases. This shows us that both these variables goes in the same direction. However, it has we have to know that there is a strong positive correlation between family planning and total fertility rate. Thus, from all those tables, we can conclude that the significant influence of education, particularly schooling and female literacy rates on family planning practices and reproductive outcomes. Higher levels of education empower women with the knowledge and skills necessary to make informed decisions regarding their reproductive health. And moreover, educated women are more likely to advocate for their own health needs and engage in discussions about family planning within their families and communities. The relation between fertility, education, and family planning underscores the importance of investing in educational initiatives, particularly for women, as a means to improve health outcomes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cecily. And if you have any questions regarding the paper presented, you can leave messages in the chat box. And moving on to the next paper presenter, let us call Metipali Navyashree and P. Nishi Priya. The topic, the paper to be presented is on cultural influence in the shaping of foreign policy between Russia and India. Is the next paper presenter there? Metipali Navyashree.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, this is Dr. Madhurima. I had my paper, but my name was not called down.
It was called, but maybe due to some technical difficulty, maybe. Okay, then we can start your paper. Social and emotional learning direct pedagogy for development of well-rounded individual.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Shall I share the screen?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Is my screen visible to all?
No, your screen is not visible.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's visible
Now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So first of all, a very good afternoon to all of you. This is Dr. Madhurima Chakravarti, Assistant Professor from School of Education, Adams University. My topic is social and emotional learning embedded pedagogy for development of well-rounded individuals. Now, we have heard about women empowerment and all those from the previous presentation. Now, what is needed in today's context is not just a all-rounder, but a well-rounded individual. We always, in the context of education, as a teacher, we always talk about holistic education, which means sound mind in a sound body. But when we are talking about well-rounded individual, it is not just having good marks or just being good in sports. It is about someone who does not possess just intellectual skills, but also emotional intelligence, physical abilities, and social competence. Now, even our Education Minister of India remarked that National Education Policy 2020 aims at creating holistic and well-rounded individuals equipped with the 21st century skills. The World Economic Forum categorizes all the 21st century skills under three categories, that is the foundational literacy, competences, and character qualities. So foundational literacies are the minimum levels of learning that every individual should have so that they can sustain their life. Competences are the one to be competent, whether social or emotional, and character qualities are how much or how far are you virtuous to your own character. A 21st century well-rounded individual needs to have sufficing intelligent question, social competence, and emotional question. Now, there is a framework which is called Collaborative Framework for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Now, this framework comprises of 5 broad categories. First is self-awareness, which is the ability to understand one's thoughts, emotions, values, and recognize strengths and limits. So you know what you are. Social awareness is just like you know what you are, you should also know what others are, putting yourself in their shoes so that you can understand their backgrounds, cultures, what context they are coming, so that by mistake also you are not getting to hurt them in some way. Self-management, it is the ability to manage one's emotions, behaviors, and thoughts effectively in various situations to achieve goals and aspirations. Relationship skills, the skills to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships to effectively navigate ways with diverse personalities and groups. So it is not just about being good with yourself. You might be upright, but how far are you capable of dealing with others? Responsible decision-making capability, the ability to take decisions for oneself and make decisions for issues, undergoes constructive and caring choices and social interactions across diverse circumstances. Now you can see the framework of CASEL. What they are showing is all the 5 are categorized under the three categories, but you can see that the outer circles are surrounded by classrooms. Within the classroom, how you can improve their social and emotional capability, that is through instruction and classroom climate, by developing a climate which is culture responsive and friendly. Within the schools, the school-wide culture and practices and policies should be developed in such a way. The families and caregivers should be in partnership with the schools. That is, since most of the time the children are within the school premise, so the parents are also, they are also in abyss, like what is going on within the school, they don't know. So there should be always a partnership that will connect the school with the family. The same thing goes with the communities, so that they can learn, have the learning opportunities for social and emotional learning. Now, what is SEL pedagogy? First of all, pedagogy is the art and science of teaching. It is referred to as the instructional techniques and strategies that the learners and teachers work with for learning to take place. So whatever is going on, for the learners to get something, to imbibe something, to learn something is a part of pedagogy. SEL has primarily been conceptualized as a set of skills that can be taught through a curriculum. Now, curriculum is also vast. It is whatever is inside the school or institutional premise, whatever goes on, it is curriculum. So curriculum is not just the syllabus. It is everything, whether the teachers, whether how many classes they are taking, whether assemblies, everything is a part of curriculum. ACL pedagogy refers to teaching practices and strategies that integrate social and emotional learning into educational environments. Now see, I have given three pictures here. The first picture is all the students are sitting together and they are learning together. That is collaborative work or cooperative work. So through collaboration and cooperation, they can definitely improve their social learning. In fact, emotional learning also, because emotional learning will be improved when they are going to interact with their peers and they will be trying to understand their stance. Next is a girl is raising her hand. So what social emotional learning talks about, pedagogy talks about is the classroom should be learner-centered. So every student should have a voice. It's not that the teacher is going to teach and the students will keep quiet. No, the student is going to make more noise than what the teacher is going to. The third picture is the teacher is trying to come down on par with the students, trying to motivate the students. That is again another part of ACL pedagogy. Now, components of ACL pedagogy. First is explicit ACL instruction. ACL skills like empathy, emotional regulation, decision making are taught, should be taught deliberately. Lessons planned should be clear with their objectives alongside their academic goals. It should be embedded in everyday practice, how? In the school day and through all the subjects. So if every subject has some kind of activities incorporated in it, in Indian context, the curriculum always demands hands-on or activity-oriented learning. So that is how it can be applied in everyday practice. Student-centered and empowering, just like I said, the students will have the voice and they will be the one who will be controlling the class to some extent. The teacher will be there to monitor and channelize, but the students will have the agency. Then we have the caring and supportive relationships, build strong teacher-student and peer relationships, promotes a sense of belonging, safety, and trust. The moment we have a supportive relationship, a conducive environment, our emotional learning, we grow because we are not penalized, we are not pinpointed. We have the fear-free environment to speak out. Culturally responsive and inclusive. ACL pedagogy talks about it. So in a class where the people are coming from diverse backgrounds, it is not, the task of the teacher is to make every learner understand what being culturally responsive is, to be respectful towards other culture, not to be tolerant, but to be accepting. That is what ACL pedagogy is talking about here when it is talking about inclusivity. Modeling by educators. Definitely, the educators should make themselves a model for the ACL competences that the students will learn through practice, by observation, by working with their teachers. Collaborative learning environment, just like I said in that picture, encourages teamwork, problem solving, and peer support. Structures like cooperative learning and group projects are used to practice ACL. Focusing on equity and social justice, it is connected to broader goals of fairness, inclusion, and advocacy. Students learn to recognize and challenge inequities in their environments. So they are not just a part of the class, but they are active participants. Restorative and reflective practices uses conflict as an opportunity for learning and growth, not punishment. The students are no more thinking that if somebody, the teacher is criticizing or their peers are criticizing, the students won't think that I am being criticized, I am being humiliated, but they will take it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, to rectify. Family and community engagement, just like I said, the outer circle. It talks about that the family and community should have, should take effort to inculcate the ACL within their learners. It creates consistency and reinforcement of ACL skills beyond the classroom also. So what are the advantages of using ACL pedagogy? First is it improves academic achievement because when you have a fear-free classroom, you don't have the fear of getting penalized. You learn. You learn because of your interest and not out of fear. Second is enhanced social competences and emotional skills. You learn to interact with your peers, which in return, when a child steps out of their school, they are actually knowing how to deal with other people from other backgrounds, from other classes. Their emotional skills also develops. They know how to self-regulate their own emotions, how to use defense mechanism to bring them up to a certain level when they might be at their worst. Lower the emotional stress, establish a healthy classroom climate. There will be equity and inclusion, and also they will be capable of achieving the long-term goals. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we can. Next up, let us call upon Laram Leni Silo and Dr. J.C. Zomwantanga to present a paper on climate diplomacy of India. Laram Liani, is she available? Are you available?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be available. 1 second. Oh, God. Uh, Ma'am, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's.
Hello?
We can see your screen.
Is my screen available?
Yes, yes. We can start.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for giving me time. So, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to present about the climate diplomacy of India, and my name is Yaram Silo, and I am a research scholar from the Department of Political Science, Mizoram University. This, uh, this one is visible, right, ma'am?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Okay. So when we talk about starting with the definition of climate diplomacy, environmental issues are now at the top of the global agenda due to the growing threat posed by climate change, and this calls for coordinated efforts to find sustainable solutions. So climate diplomacy here, it refers to the efforts by countries, international organizations, and other actors to negotiate and cooperate on global climate change issues. So it also highlights the importance of soft power. Soft power is, as Joseph Nye, who is a political scientist who recently died, passed away this year, he defines it as the ability of a country to shape the preferences of others through appeal or and attraction rather than coercion. And talking about the key elements here, climate diplomacy requires international negotiations, bilateral, multilateral climate cooperations, and financing climate action in developing countries, for example, private and public funding or financial support to reduce emissions are very important here. And next is about advancing green technology and energy transitions. Like in India, we have PM Kusum, which is about solar for agriculture and electric vehicles, etc., are on the rise these days, and it's available in all the states. And lastly, building alliances to address climate risk and resilience. This is very important. And in short, climate diplomacy is the global political process which aims at solving the climate crisis through cooperation rather than conflict. And let's focus on the importance of foreign policy in climate diplomacy. And foreign policy plays a very crucial role in climate diplomacy because climate change is an issue that transcends national borders. And here, countries must work together through international relations and strategies to effectively address this issue. And such as facilitating international cooperation through the means of Paris Agreement or even FCCC, even FCCC, etc. And foreign policy helps to shape the alliances and helps to build trust and align climate goals across borders. And it also enhances national security, for example, in case of conflicts such as migration, resource scarcity, etc. And it also shapes global norms and standards. Nations influence international climate governance through their foreign policy priorities, and this includes pushing for strong emission targets, carbon markets, or climate-related trade rules, etc. And also, it driving technology transfer and innovation is very important here because countries use diplomatic relations to share their green technologies, their expertise, and their best practices. And promoting climate justice is also important because foreign policy can reflect a country's stance on climate equity. It also shows how the country advocates for excuse me, vulnerable nations that are least responsible but which can be most affected by climate change. Let's focus on India's role. India's leadership is very crucial in climate diplomacy or in taking steps towards mitigating climate change, especially in the South Asian region, or let's say the global South. And climate diplomacy is helping India assert its global leadership by positioning the country as a key player in shaping international climate actions while balancing its development needs. So when we talk about India's role, one of the most important thing is promoting renewable energy initiatives such as India launched and it co-leads the International Solar Alliance (ISA) in 2015, and this is a coalition of 100 countries promoting solar energy, especially in the tropical nations. And next is the constructive role in global climate negotiations that India plays, like the Paris Agreement and the COP, which is known as the Conference of Parties. And India also committed to significant goals under its nationally determined contributions (NDCs) and updated them with stronger targets by 2022. And India's balanced approach here is very ambitious and it is also very pragmatic, and this enhances its credibility. And third is India leads in energy transition through programs like I have said, PM Kusum, that is solar for agriculture, adoption of electric vehicles, national hydrogen mission, etc. And India demonstrates scalable models for green growth, which gains international attention and respect. And for the fourth point, India's role is championing climate justice and equity. And the country advocates for the principle of CBDR, which is known as Common but Differentiated Responsibilities. It emphasizes the need for developed countries to lead in emission cuts while supporting developing nations. So India's leadership is very important here. And coming to the climate initiatives under Modi 3.0, I just said Modi 3.0 because this is Modi's third time as the Prime Minister. That's why we call this as Modi 3.0. So some of under Narendra Modi's third term, India has intensified its climate diplomacy and sustainability initiatives. It aims to solidify its position as a global leader in this climate action. So some of the points which I will highlight are: number one is PMSGNFBY. This is a rooftop solar plant project, and this will provide up to 300 units of free electricity monthly, and its budget allocation is around 75,000 crore. And for the next point, we have the Panchamrit commitments. Panchamrit literally means the five ingredients or the five nectars, but here it means the five crucial points uh, needed to fight towards climate change. So India it continues to uphold the Panchamrit pledges made at the COP26 meet, which includes some important points like it will achieve net zero emissions by 2070, and it will reduce carbon intensity by 45% uh, in 2030 by 2030, and it also increasing the share of non-fossil fuel sources in its energy mix. And the Modi 3.0 administration is reinforcing India's role as a proactive participant in global climate governance, balancing aspirations with environmental responsibilities, etc. And the next point is about strengthening international climate leader partnerships. Next is expansion of renewable energy capacity and climate finance taxonomy. Uh, when we talk about the climate financing, in May 2025, which is the beginning of this month, the Indian government released a draft framework for India's climate finance taxonomy. And this is a strategic tool which is designed to identify financial activities aligned with the country's climate goals and green transition roadmap, thereby enhancing the availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation efforts. And lastly, we have the Green Credit Program, which was introduced in 2000, which was introduced in 2023 as part of the Lifestyle for Environment (LIFE) initiative, and this is a market-based mechanism incentive voluntary environmental actions across various sectors. And here, I want to talk about the importance of effective diplomacy and the importance of dialogues and partnerships. Effective diplomacy. One second. Effective diplomacy is, when we say effective diplomacy, it is the art of advancing national and global interests through communication, negotiation, and relationship building. And this is backed by strategy, credibility, and cultural awareness. And when we talk about the importance of dialogues and partnerships, they are fundamental to promoting climate diplomacy because climate change is a very complex global challenge that no country can solve alone. So cooperation across nations, sectors, communities, etc., is very, very essential. And to build trust and mutual understanding, dialogues and partnerships are also important. So the dialogues create a safe space for listening, negotiating, and aligning the interests. And partnerships turns dialogues into action, and together we can say that they are the backbone of effective climate diplomacy and enabling shared responsibility, accelerating solutions, and ensuring that no one is left behind in the global fight against climate change. So I'm almost at the end of my presentation, and when we talk about the challenges and opportunities, the first thing that comes to our mind is sustainability versus development. So for a developing country like India, development needs to be our number one first, as well as sustainability. So these are the two things that can go hand in hand, but it requires a very strong political will to fulfill this. And India focuses on multilateral cooperation. Let's remember this one. And India occupies a complex position within the global climate governance framework characterized by both opportunities and challenges. India, with one of the largest and most rapidly expanding economies, globally faces the pressing challenge of achieving a harmonious equilibrium between environmental sustainability and economic progress. And the challenge is in transitioning to environmentally friendly and sustainable energy sources while simultaneously ensuring robust economic growth and energy stability. And implementing this transition requires substantial financial investments in the infrastructure and technology associated with renewable energy and careful development and implementation of policies, or we can call it as a strong political will is important. And development comes with its pros and cons. We have to remember this. And global warming will keep, it will keep existing, but mitigation efforts will be a very important step towards towards climate change, towards the fight towards climate change. And the country's strategy to face the changing climate must be mission focused, it must be target oriented, and with a strong, it must include a strong political will to achieve the sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next up, let's call SK Dilnas to present a paper on Whispers of Rebellion, Merry Words and Filia to Infidentus. SK Dilnas.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sheikh Dilnaz. I'm an undergraduate student at Budwich College, and which is affiliated to University of Calcutta. And today talk about, we're going to discuss how Mary Roth, an English Renaissance poet, used her poetry to assert female agency and resist patriarchal traditions. So, So let's begin with the introduction first. Who was Mary Roth? So Mary Roth was born into a distinguished literary family. She was the niece of Mary Herbert and a very renowned English poet, Sir Philip Sidney. She was the first English woman to write a complete sonnet sequence and an original prose fiction work, which is her and her major contributions includes Love's Victory, which was published in 1620, and it was a pastoral drama. And another one I could name is The Countess of Montgomery's Urania, which was published in 1621. It was a prose romance. Now, before understanding Roth's innovation, let's briefly discuss the traditions that she inherited. So, the sonnet originated in Italy with Giacomo da Lentini. It was popularized by Petrarch in the 1530s. It was introduced to England by Sir Thomas Watt and Henry Howard. Later, Shakespeare perfected the English sonnet form, typically as structured as three quatrains, followed by a concluding couplet. Traditional sonnets focused on themes more like love, beauty, philosophy. However, women were portrayed as an idealized silent object for male desires, and this perspective dominated the English literature for decades. Now, uh, now Mary Roth boldly defied this male-centered poetic tradition at a time when most women were discouraged, even forbidden to write or publish. She dared to produce a sonnet sequence. Her work, Pamphilea to Amphilanthus, stands out because it's written from a female perspective, exploring personal and emotional struggles and inner conflicts, rather than idealizing a male lovers. Now, she rejected the patriarchal theme of a man yearning for an unattainable woman, and instead, how female speaker navigates complex emotions, asserting independence, vulnerability, and resistance. Now, slide 5 is the most important slide. Here we compare two sonnets, one written from Mary Roth and another one by Sir Philip Sidney. So here, Sidney's sonnets such as Astrophil and Stella often feature a male speaker admiring a woman from afar. And the woman is idealized, beautiful, virtuous, silent. The male voice dominates the narrative and expressing longing and frustration when the women resist or remains unattainable. Now his language is polished, structured around clever wordplay and classical allusions. While his emotions are strong, they often reinforce male control and female passivity. Now, Mary Roth's Pamphilea, however, is deeply introspective. Her sonnets are not about conquest or worship, it's more about the processing of the emotional pain. Let's take sonnet 1 of Pamphilea to Amphilanthus, where she writes, "When night's black mantle could most darkness prove, and sleep that's imaged in my senses high." So here she describes a vision, love appearing in a dream, engraving her heart with fire, but instead of feeling joy, she feels powerless. She is bound by love, yet deeply aware of her own suffering. This is a huge shift. Where Sydney Speaker often pursues the women, Pamphilea questions the very nature of love, asking whether it's worth the cost, whether loyalty should persist in the face of betrayal. Now, another key difference lies in the tone and intent. Sydney's tone is admiring and performative, where Roth's tone is very raw, honest, and conflicted. Uh, this is the differences between sonnets written by a man and woman. I just explained this in the previous slide, so I'm moving forward. Now, what do I mean by Mary Roth as a voice of rebellion? So, with this, I mean at a time when women were expected to be silent, submissive, and invisible in public discourse, Roth's voice was unapologetically personal and political. She was loud. This portrayed women as passionate and intelligent, not as passive or dependent. Her poetic speak of Pamphylia experiences heartbreak, loyalty, and the doubt, human emotions that had rarely been voiced by any female character in the history of literature. Now, through literary techniques like metaphor, irony, and rhetorical questioning, she Roth asserted female autonomy. Her poetry is a quiet but powerful protest against the societal limitation placed on a woman. Now, in conclusion, I would like to say Mary Roth's Pamphila to Amphilanthus is not just a collection of love sonnet, it's a revolutionary act. By writing from a female point of view, she disrupted a male dominated tradition, and she reshaped the sonnet form to include female experience, emotion, and resistance. Her boldness gave future women poets a model of how to write honestly and powerfully. Today, Roth remains an important figure of feminist literary history, a voice that whispered rebellion in every line she wrote. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope this presentation was insightful, and I hope it helped you.
Okay, thank you, Jonas. Let's move on to the next topic: silent wounds, social scars, rethinking so long a letter through a disability study lens, to be presented by C. Vandal Boni.
Audible.
C. Vandal Boni.
Am I audible, ma'am? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, okay. Let me share my slide. Is my slide visible, ma'am?
Yes, it's visible. You can start.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Um, thank you for joining me this afternoon. And today's topic is Silent Wounds, Social Scars, Rethinking So Long a Letter Through a Disability Study Lens. And here I will be talking about a perspective that bridges two important disciplines, that is African literature and the disability studies, through a reading of Mariaba's iconic novel, that is So Long a Letter. And most readers encounter this text through feminist or post-colonial lenses, and rightfully so. It is rich, layered narrative about womanhood, laws, and self-determination in post-independence Senegal. And but today, I would like us to consider what if we read So Long a Letter as a disability narrative. What might we discover if we centered emotional pain and social isolation as legitimate forms of disability? So, why disability studies and why now? And in African literary analysis, disability studies has only recently begun to gain traction, and when it does appear, it often focuses on visible or physical impairments, injuries, illness, or war related trauma. But what often gets overlooked is psychological disability, the kind of disability shaped by prolonged emotional suffering, internalized trauma, and systematic silencing. In So Long a Letter, Ramatolia, our protagonist, anguish does not manifest in a way we might traditionally identify as disabled. There are no diagnoses, no hospitals, no visible ailments. Yet she is clearly in distress, deeply hurt, socially isolated, emotionally paralyzed. Disability studies give us tools to reframe this suffering not as weaknesses or moral failure, but as something socially produced, culturally shaped, and worthy of critical attentions. Coming to the next slide, let us try to define psychological disability. So, what exactly is psychological disability? Broadly speaking, it refers to the interaction between mental or mm, emotional distress and social barriers that prevents full participation in society. It emerges not only from internal psychological states but from external forces such as structural inequalities, cultural taboos, interpersonal exclusion. Crucially, psychological disability is not just about illnesses, it's about how environments fail to recognize or support emotional sufferings. In so long a letter, rheumatolia depression, anxiety, and resignations are not pathological in the clinical sense, but they are profoundly disabling in her social world. So, coming to feminist disability theory, to explore this, I turn to feminist disability theory, which foregrounds the gender dimensions of pain, silence, and embodiment. Scholars like Rosemary Garland Thompson and Alison Kafer refine us that many women's disabilities are invisible, chronic, or emotional, and are often dismissed as personal problems rather than social consequences. Feminist disability theory pushes back against the idea that suffering must be either heroically overcome or medically fixed. Instead, it emphasizes the ways that systems like patriarchy, religion, or nationalism can create or exacerbate disability. In Ramatoloya case, her emotional pain is not simply a personal reaction to betrayal, it's a consequences of gender expectations that demand patience, silence, and self-sacrifices. Coming to our next slide, it's Ramatilia's letter as a disabled narrative. Let us try to consider the form of the novel itself. It is written in a form of a letter, and this long, uninterrupted monologue to her friend Aisato becomes a space for emotional release, a kind of written therapy. She writes, I endure as the world surround me. I look on in silence. This repetition of endurance and silence is significant. It mirrors the experiences of many disabled individuals, especially women, who are expected to manage their suffering privately without complaint or support. Rheumatolia emotional wall is fragmented, looping, and non-linear, what some scholars would call narrative disability. And her thoughts circle back to the same pain, never quite resolving. The latter is not just a story, it is a symptom, an act of survival, and a record of social neglect. Mm, and we have emotional distress as socially produced in my coming slides. And here, disability studies help us make a crucial distinction. Ramatoloya's pain is not just about being abandoned by her husband or losing her companion. It's about being denied the right to grieve properly or to express emotional difficulty without judgment. So, what does society expect from her? That she forgives, that she maintains dignity, that she moves on. But these cultural scripts, while idealized as strength, actually enforce emotional suppression, which over time becomes disabling. Her social world gives her no space to break down, to rush, or to retreat, all natural responses to betrayal and grief. And next, I have the slide invisible pain, invisible expectation. And in Senegalese society, as in many societies in the global south, mental and emotional struggles are often spiritualized or moralized. Suffering is seen as a test, and endurance become a sign of righteousness. This creates an environment where pain must be hidden, where silence is rewarded, and vulnerability is shamed. So, Ramatoloya does what is expected. She performs emotional strength, even as she wishes internally. This is where we see the tension between visible social roles and invisible emotional realities, a hallmark of psychological disability. The course of composer. Let us try to be clear here. That is, Ramatolia is not weak. She is composed, she is articulated and committed to her children, her faith, and her nation. But this composer comes at a cost. It marks what we now recognize as chronic emotional strain, a form of distress that never quite erupts but also never heals. C becomes what disability theories calls a passing subject, someone who appears able but is deeply impaired by internal suffering. Her normal appearances does not negate her pain, it conceals it, making it harder to see, understand, or to support. Coming to the resistance through writing. So, yet this novel is not just a narrative of injury, it is also a form of resistance. By writing this letter, Ramatoloya claims space for her story, her pain, her voice. She transformed what might be dismissed as women issues into political testimony. This is where feminist disability theory gives us a powerful tool. It helps us recognize not only disabling experiences, but also the creative ways that women respond to them through narrative, through memory, through quiet acts of defiances. The letter becomes a way to rewrite her pain, not just endure it. And I will come to the global sub-disability frameworks here, and I will also include the border implication for African literary studies as well. And this reading of So Long a Letter opens border conversations about how we approach African literature, especially in terms of suffering and visibility. Traditional literary analysis often privilege political activism, moral fortitude, or religious faith. While these are vital, they can unintentionally erase the emotional cost borne by the character like Ramatoloya. Using Global South Disability Studies, a framework developed by scholars such as Son Grech and Karen Soldatic, we begin to see disability as contextually shaped by economic hardship, colonial legacies, and social norms rather than merely biological differences. In Gret's work, disability in the global south is often bound up with silence, invisibility, and informality. That reasons strongly with how Ramatoloya experiences her distress not as illnesses, but as a socially mandated silence. By reading her suffering as psychological disability, we can interrogate how patriarchal structure police women's emotions, colonial and Islamic codes define duty over selfhood, and emotional endurance become a normalized form of self uh, erasure. Implication for African literary studies. And here, this presentation is not arguing that Ramatoloya is mentally ill or that she needs to be medically diagnosed. Rather, we are reclaiming disability studies as in a critical lens as well, one that allow us to name and legitimize emotional suffering in literature, allowing Alison Crayford notions of creep time. We can read Ramatoloya extended mourning and reflective solitude as a disruption of normative, linear healing. She doesn't get over it, she lives with it. Crayford writes that disability challenges normative expectation of progress and cure. Similarly, Ramatoloya does not move on in a clean, redemptive arc. Her native stays with the pain. It does not pathologizes it, but neither does it fully resolve it. This is crucial in challenging the ableist framework that insists on clarity, recovery, and resolution, especially for women in post-colonial societies. And for the closing reflections, let's return to one of Ramotolaya's most poignant lines. She writes, I seek to piece together my life, my reality, my truth. And she also and then this is a striking moment of a narrative agencies in writing her letter. She claims a space to articulate a reality that society demands she suppresses. So Long a Letter is not simply a feminist protest or a post-colonial lament. It is also a story of embodied distress, of unseen wounds, and of quiet resistance. By applying a disability studies lens, particularly one attuned to psychosocial and affective experiences, we can rethink how emotional labor is narrated and politicized, acknowledge pain that is culturally silenced, and ultimately challenge what we count as visible suffering in African literature. This is not just about rereading Ramatoloya's story, it's about expanding our frameworks to include the emotional, the internal, and the often invisible effect of structural oppressions. That is all I can present this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Um, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat box. Next up, let us call upon Rangalal Mandal to present a paper on eco-consciousness in art, Sundarban's ecological concerns from Amitabh Ghosh Sundar's figures and Salman Tour's images.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Let me share my screen. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, you can start.
Yeah. So the topic is eco-consciousness in art, Sundarban's ecological concerns in Amitabh Ghosh's symbols, and Salman Tour's images. So before starting this, I'd like to introduce you about the area Sundarban. Sundarban is basically a mangrove delta, and it actually uh, consists of the confluences of Ganga, Meghna, Brahmaputra. It forms this delta in the Bay of Bengal, and it shares its territorial border with West Bengal and Bangladesh, and its largest mangrove forest in the world. So in this delta, it's a confluence of delta. In here, almost 102 islands are there, and out of 102 islands, 54 islands are inhabited by human habitation, and 48 islands are for core wildlife areas. So my presentation is on eco-precarity in Amitabh Ghosh's symbols and figures. So Amitabh Ghosh is mainly anthropocentric writer, but he has focused most of his writings on ecological issues. So throughout his writing, mainly the ecological issues, and mainly the Sundarban's ecological issues, gets its prominent view from, and then it gets a new dimension from its writing. And to focus on this paper, I actually have gone through the methodological framework, the eco-criticism. And we all know that eco-criticism actually bridges the connection between ecology or environment and literature. And it actually constantly keeps its constant focus on initial emphasis of its relationship. So Cheryl Gutfeldy, an eco-critic, comments on this that the fruitful, it can be called a fruitful disciplinary, interdisciplinary collaborations with the disciplines under the umbrella of environmental humanities. So Lawrence Buell, one of the most prominent eco-critic, he actually told that the first wave of eco-critics mainly focuses on nature poetry, nature writing, and wilderness of fiction. He also he also aims to say that this is a kind of biotic community which refers to interdependent relationship between living organism and a given environment. So my main focus in this paper is on symbols and figures. Amitabh Ghosh, being a writer, he actually has tried his hand to focus on many genres. And just like that, he has written The Gun Island, and it also focuses on the area of Sundarban. And we can say this novel is a sequel of the famous Hungry Diet. Some of the characters he actually used in this novel also from Hungry Diet, but he has used his narrative technique in this novel with total different dimension. How we will know. He has used some of the characters just like Kanai, Pia, whose view of ecological view actually shows two kinds of ecology, deep ecology and psychosocial ecology. So he also has used some figures and symbols in this movie. You can see the first one is visible, and by this first figure, Amitabh was wanted to explain that this is it depicts actually amount of two counties, and he called this the land of palm sugar. So in Bengali, it is called Tal Michri Desh. So by this figure or by this symbol, he wanted to uh, give a message that earlier this Sundarban has a connection with other parts of world, such as Egypt, Rome, and some other parts for its trading purpose. We all know that we have a trade line route that is very strong, that was very strong, that's Silk Route. But just like that, in this way, in the waterway of from Sundarban to other parts of the world, it was a connection. But the natural calamity, frequent silent, or some other climate changes actually forced to stop this trade line. After this, after this figure, there is another figure. By this figure, Amitabh was explained that this figure actually points out a gun. You can see, just like it points out a gun. So this novel is named after as Gun Island. So by this figure, he somehow hinted about the poaching and smuggling in the forest. So we all know that many films at present time also is coming out in Bollywood, Hollywood, Tollywood also about the smuggling and poaching of natural resources. And he actually wanted to hint that by this harm of this smuggling and poaching, these nature or natural sources are being harmed. But these natural sources is for all. But somehow a group of smuggler or poacher actually doing harm by doing smuggling of natural resources. In next portion, my focus is about Salman Tour's images and environmental issues in that images. Whenever Amitabh Ghosh tried to write a novel, graphic novel, Jungle Lama, actually he consulted an artist, Salman Tour, and he gave some ideas to him to Anand Sundarban that he is going to write a graphic novel and that idea should be just like that and some images he needed. So based on this idea, Amitabh Ghosh shares in one of his interview this idea. By getting this idea, Salman Toor has drawn or portrayed some images, and these images actually also portrays the ecological concerns of the Sundarban. So this is the first one is the image from Jungle Lama, and it is portrayed by Salman Toor. By this image, he wanted to explain that in Sundarban there is a border between wildlife area and human habitat. So he wanted to explain that if we try to cross that border, and if we cross that border, and if we go to that restricted area to plunder the forest resources, we will be harmed, and also the wildlife area will be harmed. So here in this slide, you can see a river that is dividing two deltas, two islands. So in the next image, he actually gave some abstract idea in concrete way in this image, through this image. How in Sundarban, there is a common idea that tiger should not be called by its real name as tiger. The local people call it as mama, or means maternal uncle. Why? Because they are so much scared or of this animal, and the tiger is so fearful that from their very childhood they know that if they go into the forest, minding that they will plunder the timbers, the harness, and other forest resources, they have to die. And so, from their childhood, this mindset, this idea is being built within their mind. That's why, whenever they enter into the forest, they see everywhere that the tiger is there. The tiger is there. So, whenever they enter, they don't think of plundering, only they think of collecting according to their need. Because according to an eco-critic, uh, our resources, the world's resources, is enough for our need, but it is not enough to fulfill our need. So here the idea juxtaposes with these images. So in this in his book Hungry Tide, he actually also gave a reference of Harry Potter, that the famous and the fearful or the demon villain Lord Voldemort is not named by the most of the characters. They used to call him as he who must not be named, because they consider that whenever or if they call him directly by his name, immediately they will come, he will reach there, and there they have to face their death by facing Lord Voldemort. In the same way, they consider the tiger in Sundarban just like that. If they face the tiger face to face, then it means that they face the death itself. So, how this idea actually tries to save the natural resources. So, by this idea, actually, they consider that the restricted area, the wildlife area, is not for plunder. It is for wildlife itself, and whatever they should collect, they should collect from their human habitated island, not from the restricted island. So, by concluding, I can say that by these ecological issues, Amitabh Ghosh not only tried to avoid the human, but also tried to connect the local issues with the global issues. So he connected the Sundarban issues to the issues of the Rome, Egypt, and New York also. So in this study, in this novel, Gun Island, which offer a valuable insights into the Sundarban's ecology and cultural significance, and the image of that mount to Palmerland and one gun-centric island. Actually, it centers on extraordinary ecological knowledge that actually, in other way, helps to conserve the forest. And his distinctive tone of language, expression, and use of these figures, symbols, actually combines the ecological attention to its environmental issues. So by examining how creative works represent the Sundarbans, the study of this paper focuses on to contribute to a deeper understanding of deltas, Sundarban Islands, environmental significance, and the importance of preserving its rich biodiversity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Arna Gupta and Srijani Chattopadhyay to present a paper on the murder of Roger Ackroyd as a study of the problem of psychology. Is Arna Gupta available? If not, we can move to the next. Priya Joyce Guria. Is Priya available?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we can start.
Okay, ma'am. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
Yes, it's visible. You can start.
Okay.
So, good evening, everyone, respected chairperson and my fellow presenters. I am Priya Joyce Guria, research scholar from Rajiv Gandhi University, and my presentation today explores adaptation of novel into film, analysis of science and intersemiotic translation of The Mistress of Spices by Chitra Banerjee Devakarni. The presentation is divided into five parts: introduction, objective, theoretical framework, analysis, and conclusion. To begin with the introduction, um, let us see what a film adaptation is. Adaptation is actually retelling of an old story in a new form or from the existing form. It is not a new phenomena. It has been done from early times by adapting written works of dramas to stage performances. According to Linda Hutcheon, adaptations are obviously not new to our time. However, Shakespeare transferred his culture's story from page to stage and made them available to a whole new audience. Adaptation can be of different types and different genres, from adapting stage drama into video games, opera, music, television series, and many more. But adaptation of novels into film are a major influence in today's world. It is not just about converting but remaking of a story. So, as Hutchins says, it is a derivation that is not derivative, a work that is second without being secondary. It is its own palimpsestic thing. While many research has been done on fidelity and originality of adaptation, on types of adaptation and other areas, but there is a limited study on adaptation as intersemiotic transfer. Coming to the objective of the paper, the objectives are to explore intersemiotic transfer of signs and changes and modification made in the visuals. Coming to the theoretical framework, this study uses qualitative approach with analytical method using theory of semiotics by Eco and intersemiotic translation by Jacobson. Now, to study how things are transferred from text to visual, it is important to study signs. Sign is something which represents something else, and according to Daniel Chandler, a sign is traditionally defined as something which stands for or represents something else. Signs are elements like words, gestures, sound, objects, and visuals that create meaning within a system of signification. The study of sign is semiotics. The concept of semiotics was introduced by Saussure and he termed it as semiology. His concept is rigid and concerns only linguistically. His Whereas, in the same time, an American philosopher, Peirce, also introduced semiotics as and preferred the term semiotics instead of the term semiology. His understanding of semiotics was not rigid, but he believed that meanings are generated and accepted and challenged as a part of a cultural process. After that, many semioticians modified the concept um, and later, Eco, in his work A Theory of Semiotics, introduced that signs can have meaning even if they are not referring to actual things. He rejected the idea given by the previous semioticians that signs only refer to physical thing or object. He introduced that signs and meanings not only depend on real world objects but also objects that do not exist but are explained through a person's cultural understanding and acceptability. According to Eco, semiotics is concerned with everything that can be taken as a sign. A sign is everything which can be taken as significantly substituting for something else. Now, moving to intersemiotic translation, Jacobson, in, in his essay on linguistic aspect of translation, divided translation of signs into three categories, namely intralingual, interlingual, and intersemiotic. So, intersemiotic translation studies the transfer of sign from one medium to another. It can be studied in the transfer of sign from the novel to the film. Now, the novel chosen for the study is The Mistress of Spices by Chitra Banerjee Devakarni and its film adaptation by Paul Vergis. It is about a woman named Tilo who is trained to become Mistress of Spices and also has some mystical powers. She is in Auckland to help people there. Since the novel is a diasporic novel, so mainly the themes are diaspora related. The novel is about her trying to help people with the spices, but the film, in addition to that, also mostly um presents romantic encounter with Revan, who is named as Doug in the film. So, as you can see, the table presented, it is divided into 8 columns: expression in the novel and the film, content in the novel and the film, signification in the novel and the film, and compatibility and differences in the film. So, coming to number one, the spices, which are both presented as the spice bazaar and the spices as Indian thing in novel and the film. Indians staying in Auckland come to the store to get the spices. The spices are connection to food prepared in their homeland. These spices are expression of these customers which affirm their identity as Indian. It serves as a signifier of cultural identity for every Indian in the hostland. The same signifier is also used in the film too. Indian visits the store to buy spices according to their eating preferences, and it is the sole place where they feel like they have found authentic necessity for their survival in the hostland. Apart from what the sign represents, if we see the description of the novel, the spice in the store is described as inside walls veined with cobwebs were hang discolored picture of gods, their sad shadow eyes. But the visual, if we see the picture number one, the visual is completely different from what has been described in the novel. The visual shows that the store is well arranged and decent with clean environment and no cobwebs or discolored pictures of God. These changes have been done maybe to portray good and attractive cinematographic visuals for the audience. The spices are also, we can see, are arranged neatly and displayed perfectly. So, uh, coming to the third sign, the spices and the spice and the in the film, the red dry chili is given more uh, visual appearance, or we can say importance, as we can see in the picture number 3, that the spices in the novel is considered as a non-acceptance relations as an sorry as an expression towards the non-acceptance of relation between Tilo and Doug. As a mistress, she is not supposed to have any relationship with another man, but in the novel, it has been described that they are at the counter, Tilo on the inside, Raven long-legged and leaning against the wall, and in between them, yes, the spies like a wall watching. So here, red dry chilies are hanged on the wall, and we can see Tilo and Raven, they're standing opposite to each other, and the red chilies are hanged in between them. So the imaginary wall is being used, expressed, shown by this red chilies. So coming to the fourth sign, we can see the expression knife and the expression silver waist chain in the film. So the sign which is used in the novel, that is the knife, which was given to Tilo as a going away gift by the old one, or we can say the first mother, is changed in the film to silver waist chain. So before Tilo walks on the Sampati's fire, um, she is given the silver waist chain, and the first mother fasten it around her waist. So at the end, not at the end, but by the time the film ends, we can see that uh, Doug removes that silver waist chain off Tilo's waist, and they both enter into a forbidden desire of physical connection. As removing it also implies that breaking of the rule as a mistress. mistress. Changing this sign in the film is for convenience or to get a visual um, presentation of the breaking of the rule. Number fifth, we can see the sign which is mehendi, which is presented in the film, is not available in the novel. The use of mehendi in the film is also significant as Tello helps that to apply on the hands of a woman who visits her claiming that she runs a salon nearby. The woman says that her friend told her that the mehendi it is a Indian thing. Tello helps her, and while applying, a conversation arises in which Tillo asks her when is she getting married, suggesting that mehendi is normally done on brides. To which the woman replies that she requires attractive hands to look pretty for a hair show. She is unaware that mehendi is usually related to marriage and the brides. This scene is and the expression mehendi is important in arriving at a conclusion before the film ends, where a visual of Tillo and Raven is shown. The second picture of number 5 is shown where we can see Tillo's hands are adorned with mehndi, signifying that she either gets married to Doug or they are together later in life. On the same scene, lying on red chilies also signify that their relationship has been accepted by the spices. The spices may have forgiven her and she is leading a harmonious life with balancing her role as mistress of spice and her role as Doug's lover. Coming to the conclusion of the paper, um, it can be it it the conclusion is that the same signs are both used in the novel and the film, but visual presentation is modified in the film to enhance its visual appeal for the viewers. Signs are not simply transferred, but it is transformed to suit the visuals of the film. Originality and fidelity coexist in adaptation when seen through semiotic lenses, as few additions and modification is done by the film adapter to make the film storyline appealing. So, this much is for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next up, we have Rennie Cinderella S. to present a paper on empowering students with key presentation skills to enhance English communication. Rennie.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Give me a minute to share my PPT.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Yes, your screen is visible. You can start.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening to one and all gathered here. So I'm Rennie Cinderella, research scholar from Department of English at Sastra University. Today I'm going to present a paper on empowering students with essential presentation skills for effective English communication. It is basically based on ALT-based paper. So the contents that we are going to discuss here: introduction, study overview, methodology, data and observations, valuation and correlation, discussion, the needs, suggestions and recommendations, and the conclusion. Let's start with the introduction. So English communication skills become indispensable for academic, professional, and social success. So schools and in colleges in India and many other countries emphasize English as a core subject, which focus often on written proficiency, grammar, and especially as an exam-oriented learning. As a result, students excel in written English frequently, but they struggle when required to speak in front of an audience, especially. This gap between written and oral proficiency is particularly evident among first year college students because till 12th standard, they used to score high marks when it comes to subject English. But when they came to college, if we ask them to come and speak in front of an audience, they will exhibit anxiety, lack of confidence, and insufficient presentation skills because they are in lack of oral assessment. So, my paper aims to explore the root causes of this disconnect and to highlight the need of presentation skills and public skills into the English curriculum from the school level itself. By analyzing the performance of specific students, I'm going to provide data driven insights. So, the study overview is about class profile and context. This study was conducted with a batch of 60 first year undergraduate students at Sastra University itself. The students had all completed their 12th grade in English medium schools, especially most of them are from CBSE schools and IGCSE schools. Only a few are from state board schools. And they all had scored about 80 percentage in their English board exams. Actually, the class was diverse in terms of gender, socioeconomic background, and prior exposure to English outside the classroom. But the schools that they were studied from. So here, the inclusivity is lacking because students also have studied in state board, matriculation, and CBSE. They all have different kind of criteria and activities. But the college curriculum required them to participate in a series of oral presentations as part of their CIA, which means continuous internal assessment, in addition to regular written assignments and exam. So with these students, I have continued with my method. So methodology that I'm going to follow, that I have followed is mixed method, combining quantitative data and qualitative method. So quantitative data consists of marks, assessment rubrics. Qualitative, it's student behavior, feedback, and self-reflection. So the first thing, I have collected 12 board exam scores and their first CIA written assignment marks were recorded. And later, it moves on to their observation of presentations. Each student was asked to deliver a 5-minute presentation on a given topic in English. Presentations were observed and recorded for analysis of teachers. Then evaluation. Presentations were evaluated based on the content, language accuracy, their organization, body language, eye contact, voice modulation, and also with audience engagement. After the presentation, students completed a self-reflection feedback form about their experiences as well as their challenges and present areas of their improvement. Here, teacher observation plays a major role. The instructor maintains notes on student performance, anxiety levels, and classroom dynamics. Moving on to the next slide, the data and observations that I have collected. So the first one is oral presentation performance. So, however, a stark contrast when compared to written communication during the oral presentation, the stark contrast emerged. Using a 50 points rubric, the average score for the class was 29, with only 10% of students scoring above 40. So the key observations that we have included here is language fluency, body language, voice modulation, organization and audience, and engagement. Most students could construct sentences correctly, but they often hesitated, passed to their native language when nervous. 70% of the students exhibited closed body and they are not following a proper body gestures. Many spoke in a normal tone, too softly or too quickly because out of fear, but it making it difficult for the audience to stay engaged. Presentations often lack a clear introduction, that flow, and proper conclusion. Especially most of the students would start with proper greeting and ends with thanking note. Few students attempt to interact with the audience, but most of them look over the wall and speak. The next one is about written communication proficiency. So, analysis of the students' academic records that I have collected already, that 60 students have consistently performed well in written English assessments. Most of the students have scored above 87%, and they are scoring good in their CIA exams too. The next one is about teacher observations. The teacher noted that even students who were otherwise confident in class discussion became visibly nervous during formal presentations. Some students memorized their speech but struggled when asked follow-up questions, indicating a lack of spontaneous speaking ability. So the next one is evaluation and correlation. A comparative analysis conducted between students' written English scores and their oral presentation. The correlation coefficient was found to be low, that is, R is equal to 0.22, with suggesting that high written proficiency did not predict strong presentation skills. Actually, this supports the hypothesis that current English education practices are not adequately preparing students for real world communication. It's just preparing them for to excel in written proficiency. But written proficiency is only useful for us for academic purposes, especially while in writing exams. But when it comes to communication, students are students are not at all achieving that fluency. The discussion, the root causes, when it comes to root causes, why it's happening, it's especially because of exam-oriented curriculum on their school days. English is taught primarily as a subject to pass exams. So all students feel like English is an easy exam with little emphasis on speaking and listening skills because they are giving importance to reading and writing skills. Lack of exposure. Students rarely have opportunities to speak or present in English outside the classroom, especially in non-urban settings. In urban settings, most of the students are able to communicate in English, but when it comes to non-urban settings, rural areas, the students are able to read and write from their particular curriculum. If we ask something in English, they are struggling to communicate back. Next one is cultural factors. In many communities, public speaking is not at all encouraged, and mistakes are stigmatized, leading to fear and anxiety. Teacher training. Many English teachers themselves lack training in teaching oral communication skills. They always focus on grammar and literature because we all are thinking that English is all about grammar and literature. But English is more than that. So why we need skill-based English education? Why there should be a skill-based English education in the school itself? Because the data itself clearly demonstrate the need to shift from a content-heavy, exam-focused approach to a skill-based communicative model. Because this will lead to a proper communication by the students, and this involves integrating speaking and presentation tasks in classroom activities, providing constructive feedback and opportunities that will helpful for their self-reflection. Encouraging peer learning and group presentations. It develops the interaction with others, social interaction with others. Using technology. By using technology, they use that to enhance engagement. So, my suggestions and recommendations for schools. Let's take the schools first. Curriculum reform. For example, revising English syllabi to include regular oral assessments, debates, group discussions, and presentations from their curriculum. Next one is teacher training. To equip teachers with resources and training to foster speaking and presentation skills in the classroom. Before going to and touching the students, we should train the teachers first. And also, we should create a supportive environment where students can practice without fear or harsh judgment. Integration. Here that integration means integration with other subjects. Encourage cross-curricular projects that require presentation. Next one for colleges. For colleges, we can offer bridge courses like in presentation skills for first year students. Next one is continuous assessment. Making oral communication as a regular part of assessment, not just a one-off activity. Mentorship programs pair students with mentors or senior students to practice and receive feedback. Use of technology. Encouraging the use of multimedia tools and platforms like PowerPoint, video blogs, podcasters, anything to make presentations more engaging. Next one for policy makers. Policy guidelines here to mandate the inclusion of oral communication skills in English curricula at the state as well as in the national levels, because more than writing, oral communication is important. Funding and resources. Provide funding for teacher training programs and language labs, because with the use of language lab, a student can excel in listening and speaking. Assessment reforms. Redesign board exams. We can redesign the board exams to include speaking and listening components. Through that, the students can excel in speaking and listening as well. On the other hand, they can gain knowledge from reading and writing skills too. To conclude this, the transition from school to college, it exposes a critical gap in English language education because students who excel in written exams often lack the confidence and skills to communicate effectively in front of an audience, especially with public speaking, presentation skills, and whatever it is. So, my study based on a detailed observation on first year college students, it highlights the urgent need to reimagine English teaching as a holistic, skill oriented process. By embedding presentation and public speaking skills into the curriculum from an early stage, educators can empower students to become more confident communicators. And they are also ready for the demands of higher education and the workplace. So, we will define our students' future and we should prioritize the real world skills by giving importance to English language communication rather than preferring into written skills, reading and writing skills. So, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Okay, thank you. We have one more paper presented today. Letipali Navyasri and P. Nishipriya. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So, yeah, so good evening, everyone. And today we'll be presenting about the cultural influence of Russia and relationships between India. So, I'll be sharing my screen in a minute. So I hope I'm audible and the screen is also shared for you. So
Yes.
today's, so thanks. So we'll be talking about like how the cultural influence of Russia and basically the India's relationship have brewed over a period, and as a part of the cultural exchange, what are the factors that have played role in enhancing the culture of India and enhancing the role of culture of Russia in making the relationship between these two nations evolve over a period, and we will be reading about the relationships between India and Russia, especially the beginning of the friendship treaty in 1970, etc., and all, and the revival of the same thing in 2000. So, going back to the today's Russian Federation, if we talk about the Soviet era, so since the Soviet era, the importance of the culture. So this was mainly seen through the perception of public and their beliefs and opinions. And this diplomatic relationships between these two nations have had this common non-alignment and mutual cooperation even during the Cold War. And this relationship has specifically solidified with various treaties and the economic interests that we have seen. So this we can understand that this is not merely a traditional diplomacy, but a strategic component of these two nations exhibiting their balance or their mutual cooperation on certain terms that have been going on in this South Asian region or the mere Indian Ocean region. So, but also the 1991, which basically we call for this enhancement of this global village or opening up of borders. So, these 1991 year or with disintegration of Soviet especially, this also actually posed certain challenges, and these new challenges and the bilateral ties have opened up to other new venues. So through this, we have the Russian re-emergence have actually made it a global player, and with India's significant rise in the economic power also further strengthened our relationship between India and Russia, and this can be seen in enhancing the regional and the global strategies. So this also could be seen through high-level visits, joint statements, and agreements between these two nations, which basically consider as bilateral relationships. And also these include like the signing of strategic partnerships and the enhanced cooperation in defense, energy, space, exploration, and the summits, and the continuous dialogues and the Dosti vision, which was articulated in 2014. have also all this multifaceted nature of the relationship have emphasized not only our defense and economy, but also the cultural and the people-to-people exchanges. So as for FENG also, this approach is rooted in the cultural exchanges and the mutual appreciation, and educational exchanges form a major cornerstone of this strategy. So the basic question that we would be understanding is the analysis of the cultural influence on India's policy or Indian influence on Russian foreign policy. This also gives insights into strategic use of the cultural diplomacy and its impact on the bilateral relations, so which have been contributing or establishing India to build a soft power image. And also the main objectives were studied through this mere research question is to find a comprehensive understanding of how the cultural diplomacy and the soft power initiative contribute to the strategic decisions that have been made between India and Russia. See, especially with the ongoing the border conflicts or the ongoing terror conflicts, we could have seen the people appreciating the exchange of S-400 between India and Russia, but which was eventually cancelled out or to China as a part of it not being a part of MTCR. So if we look at like why was India was given priority rather than China is through our diplomatic, our cultural or traditional enhanced relationships that we pose or that we tend to have with Russia over a period are the basic features that have led to signing of that deal also. So, and to analyze the impact of cultural exchanges on political and economic aspects. So this looks into different aspects like how the cultural diplomacy historically influenced foreign policy towards India. So this is to explore like the historical context, evolution of cultural diplomacy, and also to understand the foundational elements of cultural exchanges and how they have shaped these relationships. And the primary instruments would be the initiatives that have been employed by Russia to promote its culture and strengthen diplomatic ties with India. So this exchange of culture would be merely seen in exchange of the educational programs, cultural institutions, and the media strategies. So now what impact does this cultural and educational exchanges have is an outcome of the cultural diplomacy efforts that these two nations have been accumulated through cooperation and economic partnerships, and also how the bilateral agreements and the strategic collaborations have happened, and the leverage that Russian leverage and the cultural diplomacy to enhance its soft power and global image could be seen through a question, could be seen as a question which basically investigates into the broader implications of the Russia's cultural diplomacy. This focuses on its role in building soft power and projecting favorable image internationally. And also this explores the strategies of the to use the cultural diplomacy to enhance influence on a global stage. So now this basically explores the aspects of the diplomacy, including the public perception and the mutual relationships, and how the cultural affinity and shared values and the diplomatic interactions could help in enhancing the policy decisions. So now, if we come look at the existing literature, or if we look at the notion studied from the cultural point of view, so if we the Anjali Ghosh in 2000 in the article in this volume, like she specializes that the different dimensions of foreign policy has been examined, and this economic growth basically has propelled its status of globally recognized power and nuclear policy, and eventually the maritime strategy has also presented the future capabilities and aspirations of India. But all these things are often been neglected by this international media or the studies of international politics. So because for the formation, in formulating the government policies, and it analyzes the multilateral and bilateral relationships which eventually influence the stability of the subcontinent. in the South Asian region. Now the Arun Mohanty 2019. So in this, they tracing Russian Indo-Russian diplomatic history. So in this article, Arun Mohanty have established that the formal relationships between India and Russia have existed even before there has been a formal establishment. So even after the formal establishment, it was done through diplomatic relationships. So the Prime Minister, then first Prime Minister Nehru, have initiated this diplomatic relationships with the Soviet Union, and eventually the Soviet was also enthusiastic enough to respond to the launch, to respond to the relationships, and launched unique uh, relationships that have been existing between India and Russia. So the detailed, if we look at it, details if we look into it, it basically enhances the that there exists a close bond between India and Russia. Through this this was also proved through the existing wars that India had through over the periods, and the politics that involves the constant geographical fight, or either the mutual recognition of geopolitics. So the stance would be on a similar note. So now if we look at Belanger in 1999, so this also talks about like how the increasing interconnectedness of the world, which are basically driven by the communication, transport. These also facilitate the cultural exchange and the practices, the cross-border practices. And this also has led to the reconstruction of the economic life, the power dynamics, and the knowledge, and identify this on a global scale. And the next one would be by Akhtar Zafar in 2023, the latest one. So this talks about how India, Russia, and Central Asia have had this growing convergence of interests among these three counterparts. So this also talks about how India and Russia have this the robust foundation and the cultural and historic ties in Central Asia, and how both of these nations' foreign policy would also enhance for the mutual development and engagement, and the partnership could the partnership leads to a trilateral cooperation, and the potential among these three trilateral countries could also lead to enhanced development in the international world. So now, if we talk about the pre-Cold War relationships, so the cultural exchanges could date back to around like 15th century. So where Russian merchants have said to have traveled to India. So in his documented journey, which is titled "The Journey Beyond the Three Seas," it provides a detailed account of Indian society, the culture, the economy, and the exploration basically highlights the curiosity and the respect that these two civilizations have. So, and also similarly in 19th and 18th century, if we look at it, the cultural exchanges between Russia and India have become like more to talk about in terms of like the literature or be it in intellectual discourses. So this could also be seen where the ideas were also interchanged, like the impact of Indian culture on Russia through the various themes like the spiritual or the non-violent civil disobedience ideas. And also the Soviet era have also marked the exchanges between India and Russia. This could also be seen during the independence time, like the 1947, where Indo-Soviet Cultural Society was established in 1952. And this has looked into the exhibitions, film festivals, literary exchanges, which basically aimed to foster the understanding and strengthen the ideological alignment between these two countries. And the another one of the important cornerstone in this exchange is the educational exchange. So because here the thousands of like Indian students have said to have traveled to Soviet Union to pursue the higher education in various fields. We could see on a day-to-day basis, especially the medicine, MBBS doctors been traveling, the students been seeking to take this MBBS profession, the medical profession in the Russia. So the students have also said to have not only gained these technical skills, but this have led to deep appreciation of Russian culture and society. So because this could also be seen similarly, the vice versa, where Soviet scholars and experts have also said to have visited India, and this has developed the Indian institutions and the research centers. And this has enhanced relationship and the key diplomatic treaties could also be seen during the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation in 1971. So this was during the liberation of movement for the Bangladesh and the conflicts that has been arised to the Pakistan and the Indian conflict. And a treaty basically what did it do was provided a mutual framework and support, committing the nations to consult each other on matters of like mutual interest and non-interference and peaceful existence. And this instrument have also assured that India of the Soviet support, and it was very pivotal in its decision to intervene in the East Pakistan or Bangladesh. And this treaty is said to have solidified the strategic alignment between these two nations, and also it has set the future for the cooperation that are about to come in such domains. So after the Soviet disintegration in 1991, India and Russia also said to have redefined their relationships. So this redefinition of relationships could be seen in 1993, where this Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation have been reiterated, and again further it was extended. And this treaty marked the beginning of a new phase in Russia and India's relationships, which have emphasized the importance of adapting to new geographical realities and eventually maintaining the core relationships, the core values in their relationships. So another landmark agreement could be seen in Declaration of Strategic Partnership in 2000. So the declaration, it was basically a testament to deepen our bilateral ties. This highlights the multifaceted nature of the relationship, and it enhances the cooperation in defense, energy, trade, science and technology, and also the cultural exchanges. And this also facilitated the regular high-level meetings and established a hotline between the Moscow and India. And this also led to the annual summits between Russian presidents and Indian prime ministers. This ensured the engagement and the coordination have been reaffirmed, and the 21st century bilateral agreements could be reinforced again. So if we look at it, the cultural diplomacy and exchange programs, so this it was basically done to promote national interest, right? So the historically involved promotion of cultural language, Russian language, literature, art, music, and the cultural affinity has increased between these two nations. And the Indo-Soviet ISCUS was also played a pivotal role in organizing this numerous cultural events, and which this has led to the cultural impact on this diplomacy, eventually leading to educational exchange programs. So this Indian students were also offered, if you look at the educational wise, they were also offered scholarships to study in universities, and in exchange, this has created a network of individuals who has acted like cultural ambassadors in promoting goodwill and understanding between the two nations. So these educational exchanges have continued no matter what era or what environment that was going on in international politics. But the cultural diplomacy has manifested through these artistic exchanges also.
Excuse me, can you wind up your presentation, please?
Yeah, yes. So the negotiation was done through soft power as a negotiation. So these all cultural aspects or the language aspects or the exchange of the diplomatic or enhancement of relationships between these two nations could be termed as India has used this soft power as a negotiation. So this soft power arises from countries' cultural political values and where we see this as a legitimate and moral authority. And it was argued that the cultural diplomacy also helps in constructing and disseminate the national narratives. And art and literature also have played significant role in shaping public perception. And Russian literacy also gained huge audience like Dostoevsky or Pushkin or Tolstoy, and the admiration for the cultural bridge have also enhanced more accessibility and relatability to the Indian audiences. So this soft power as a negotiation have helped India establish peaceful relationships, and through the diplomacy of educational programs and institutions and media and communications and various other initiatives by also Russia have led to this shared identities and constructive role beliefs in shaping both the states' behavior and enhancing their relationship in international space through this cultural diplomacy. So that's all for our key findings in this topic. So thank you for giving this opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss. Let me call Amalna KH to present Voices of the Divine, the socio-political significance of Comarams in Kerala Theyyam rituals. Is Amalna KH is present here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Miss, you can present it, your paper.
Okay, sir. Let me share my presentation. Is my presentation visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible. Yes, continue, please.
Yeah, good afternoon to all. Myself, Amalna. I'm a research scholar from University of Calicut, and my paper titled Voices of the Divine, the Socio-Political Significance of Comarams in Kerala's Theyyam Rituals. Kerala's mother goddess cult is an example of just how the state's culture blends Brahminical and Dravidian practices. It combines both Brahminical and folk traditions. In Brahminical tradition, the goddess resides in temples, while in folk culture, she is honored as Amma and placed in sacred groves. The cow tradition, which refers to sacred forest linked to temples and homes to goddess like Amma, Ayyappa, and Yakshini, is an example of how Hinduism has an intricate relationship with nature. In Kerala, the Kali beliefs have a long tradition and has taken several forms, including Bhuvaneshwari, Bhairavi, Bhadrakali, and Chamundi. Among the deities, Kali cult is a complex tapestry of customs, rituals, and of performing arts. Chottanikara Bhagavati Temple, Kodungallur Bhagavati Temple, Kottamkulangara Bhagavati Temple, and Mullakkal Bhagavati Temple are among Kerala's most sacred Bhagavati temples. Mother Goddess cult is visibly represented on Kerala's ritual and performing arts, which are frequently influenced by societal myths and stories. Devi's position as Mother Goddess and divine representation in Hinduism is a necessary component of both the traditional and modern world. The popular form of dance known as Theyyam or Theyyatam originated in northern Kerala, particularly in the post-Kolatnad area, which encompasses today's Kannur and Kasargod district. Almost every caste and social class in Hindu community engages in these exist beliefs, which has centuries-old traditions, rituals, and customs. The word Theyyam originates from the word Devam, which means God. This art form incorporates key aspects of tribal culture and is a unique fusion of dance and music. Teyyam performance blends aspects of devotion, fear, surprise, and peace that brings highly spiritual and emotional experiences to the Teyyam artist and the audience. Devotees of this sacred art form normally perform it in sacred groves since they feel that obtaining blessings from Teyyam would assist them to address their problems and fears. Occasionally, the performer assumes the position of a prophet, symbolizing the divine, and make predictions about the future of individuals who are looking for guidance. The Vaniya community is the performers of Muchilod Bhagavati Teyyam. They are traditionally called Peruvannan. One of the well-known Teyyams, besides being a religious story, the folklore surrounding the deity implicitly criticizes Brahmanism, which reflects patriarchal power. This dramatic ritual is a symbol of protest against Brahmanical power since it incorporates with the Vaniya community's challenges and fears. In this regard, Muchilod Bhagavati is performed as an instrument of expressing the social and psychological conflict within the society as well as a spiritual movement. The performers undertake over a month of intense penance and purification before they perform the rite. They merely consume fruit and milk as the ritual starts, which is supposed to boost their spiritual discipline. They receive an unusual skill by these sacrifices that enables them to assume on the appearance of the goddess. They entirely lose into singing totems and performing Kaliyatam throughout the 3 day ritual, withdrawing themselves from their everyday activities to devote their all to the holy action. The rites of Muchilod Bhagavati Teyyam continues for 3 days. At 1 o'clock on the third day, Muchilod Bhagavati brings her divine appearance. Before any of this, a ritual termed Kanalatam is performed by the Guru Velichapada, leading to tension among his devotees. According to this, chief Komarams beats at the coal fragments in front of the temple in honor of Devakanya's suicide. The Devi then emerges in all of her gorgeous attire. Her elegant entry is viewed as a blessing by the followers despite the huge crowd and the intense heat. The Teyyam resides in the temple yard until midnight, and it claims that the Devi resides there until that time as well. The goddess symbolized by the Teyyam communicates to her followers at these sacred times. They converse to her in privacy about their happiness, challenges, and difficulties. They are deeply comforted by this spiritual connection. The goddess directly meets with each devotee on the evening of the third day and confers her blessing on them with prasadam. The value of the ceremony as a strong therapeutic experience can be seen by the people's enthusiastic involvements. They have an intimate connection to their goddess at this time. At midnight, as the ceremony finally comes to an end, the believers walk back to their homes, delighted at having met with their deity. The real significance of the name Teyyam becomes clear during this spiritual meeting. The ritual's principal objective is spiritual healing, letting devotees to experience mental purification by getting rid of errors and illusions through a remarkable performance. Kakar underscores the value of guru-disciple relations involving touching, blessings, and giving prasadam. In accordance to him, these exchanges are vital for assisting the sufferer or seeker to reduce their barriers and faster the journey to become one with Guru. Spiritual healing is the ultimate result of these procedures. A strong and scary image of the goddess is generated by the Teyyam performers, including her actions, jewelry, and overall attitude. By making opponents fearful, this terrifying appearance is means to safeguard devotees. At the time, the devotees are compelled to honor these gorgeous images with heroic reverence due to their understanding of the goddess. As a result, those who believe ultimately find comfort in this terrifying attraction. They experience catharsis as a result of the ceremony. The fundamental conflict in these rites is a common psychological aspect. The goddess or divine force acts as the super ego in Muchilod Bhagavati. The ego is symbolized by the Brahmins who insulted and defeated Devaganya. Yet, the superego is portrayed as the goddess who brings measles and other illness on them. The devotees' minds are purified as a consequence of this deep inner experience. This situation illustrates the conflict between the ego and it, where the concept of reality and pleasure collide and led to catharsis. Thus, the ritual is the representation of the defense mechanism of the disturbed mind of the marginalized people. These rituals of Kerala, which bring out the Kerala culture to the world, should not be limited to the religious realm alone. The significance of its extent beyond religious as it exposes the various forms of marginalization, oppression, and discrimination that takes place in society. It acts as a prism through which one can see how certain communities or groups have stood up to discrimination, marginalization, or injustice through history.
परिपालय परमेशी कमलालय श्रीदेवी कुरिपिंचवे करुणाम्बुरासी दीन्तारा दीन्तारा जतुलतो प्राणमे नाट्यं जैसे गतुलतो रामशतं मूला नतुलतो नापैननी सुपुआ.
And in this slide, you can see the fire in the hand of the performer, which recalls the anger of the goddess against injustice, especially the myth of betrayal by the patriarchal Brahmins. And it is the farewell speech delivered by the performer, and it is the moment that blends myth, blessings, and social guidance, and this marks the end of the ritual performance. Thank you.
Miss, thank you for presenting your paper. Now, let me call Bindu John to present his paper on the cause of silence, understanding teenage suicide through 13 reasons why in the digital age. Mr. Bindu is here?
Yes, sir.
Miss Bindu, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, Miss, you can present it, your paper.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Good evening, all. I am Bindu John, research scholar, Maharaja's College, Ernakulam, Kerala. My title of my paper is Echoes of Silence: Understanding Teenage Suicide Through 13 Reasons Why in the Digital Age. Understanding suicide, a sociological and psychological perspective, and suicide is a phenomenon that has been studied since the 19th century. And it has been a subject of debate and study, and defining suicide is a complex task due to its individual and collective nature. And Emily Durkheim's On Suicide, it was published in 1897, emphasizes the social causes of suicide. And he defined suicide as an act knowingly committed by the individual that leads to death. And it reflects both individual suffering and social conditions. And complexity of definition, that is, it can be seen as a problem, condition, disease, or event. And it's often linked to existential crisis and inability to cope with life demands. And along with that, social environments also play a critical role in shaping suicidal tendencies. And need of the study only because suicide is a growing crisis nowadays. And according to WHO, and 7,27,000 people die by suicide every year. Many more attempt suicide. And it is considered as the third leading cause of death among 15 to 29 years old globally. And suicide affects families, communities, and nations deeply. And now it is very important to give mental attention to the school-going students these days. It's because of the following reasons: increasing rates of anxiety and depression among students, and growing demand for mental health services in schools. And that is the reason why the government has mandated this appointment of academic counselors in schools and colleges. And here again, it is a challenge to detect it in the early stage itself. And students, due to the following reasons, students often hide emotional distress, and warning signs become evident only after a suicidal act. And need for early intervention and awareness among peers and teachers. And case in point, it is Mihir, a ninth standard student from Kerala, was committed suicide, and due to the reasons, that is, he was bullied in the new school, and he was labeled as a problem maker also. So mental health struggles went unnoticed by his parents as well as the school authorities. So this is the same case that happened in 13 Reasons Why, a Netflix series. There, the main character, Hannah Baker, also committed suicide due to these reasons. And the main objective of this study is to examine how Thomas Joyner's interpersonal theory reflects Hannah's experiences on perceived burdensomeness, thwarted belongingness, and acquired capability for suicide, to analyze the role of parents, teachers, school counselors, and peer groups in recognizing and responding to adolescent emotional needs. And regarding 13 Reasons Why, this Netflix series was developed by Brian Rocky based on Jay Asher's 2007 novel. And it centers on Hannah Baker's suicide, and the reasons for the suicide were revealed through 13 tapes that she recorded before committing suicide. And this Netflix series was premiered in March 2017 and became one of Netflix's most watched series. And the series was praised for its bold storytelling and performances, especially Catherine Langford. And this series was also criticized for graphic content, and it sparked global discussions on teenage mental health and responsible media portrayal. And regarding this interpersonal theory of suicide, it was developed by Thomas Joyner, and it arises, the main suicidal desire arises from two main factors: thwarted belongingness and perceived burdensomeness. Normally, all individuals may face at least once in their life these two factors. But if he or she has that capability to commit suicide, if she acquires that only, this suicide happens. So these three things, three factors are needed for a person to commit suicide. And here the discussion part, Hannah Baker's journey, and in the opening scene itself, the series starts with the photograph of Hannah, and there we can see the main character, Clay Jensen, receives the 13 audio tapes. And second episode onwards, we can see the flashbacks. and that is Hannah arrives at Liberty High School seeking acceptance and friendship. And she got it in the beginning from Jessica and Alex. They were also new to that school, and they used to meet at Monet's Cafe. And there she had first love, that is with Justin. And Justin shares an intimate photo in her class group, and which goes viral and igniting gossip and emotional trauma. But at that time, she could overcome this trauma only because of her friends Jessica and Alex. And second episode onwards, we can see total belongingness begins there. And she lost her friendship with Alex and Jessica. And here, public shame for private betrayal. And Courtney's betrayal is there. And she got another friend, that is Courtney. And Courtney also, another student leaked one intimate photo with Courtney, and Taylor shared it. And later, Courtney, in order to, she denied that involvement and spreads rumors to protect herself from the truth that she is a gay. And so, in order to protect herself, she said some other rumors about Hannah. So, a lot of reasons were there, one after another. And next, this Valentine's Day comes, and there also Marcus invited her for a meeting, and there also Marcus arrives late and inappropriately touches her in the cafe. And he said that, I thought you were easy. That was another shock, and unable to react at that time, and trauma again started from there. So this next also, so Hannah thought of joining in some other activities, and she joined in a poetry class, and she wrote that poem. But after writing the poem also, she wrote some of that sentences there, like stones tied to my feet. Then other words also were there, clearly hinting that chance of committing suicide. But the English teacher read it in the class, but she also didn't ask who has written it. It came in the school's newsletter. Even the academic counselor also didn't intervene in this situation. And here, actually, institutional negligence and moral responsibility is there. And the school system, school counselor dismisses the poem's suicidal undertones. And when her parents got this one, and they came and asked about this poem after her death, and that counselor said a lot of teens talk about being lost. So that shows harmful normalization of emotional red flags. So actually, the question comes, role of educators. Teachers must go beyond academics and recognizing emotional shifts, behavioral changes, and cries for help in students' work. Here comes Durkheim's theory of social integration that is very, very important. So whenever we have a friend circle, or if we have a good family, then definitely these type of traumas can be discussed, and a school-going student can overcome it. So, and here again a haircut was there in that movie, and it is actually a cry for change. No one noticed, even her mother or father. So that is a parental detachment is there. Then cry for recognition is there, and other issues were there. And here silent struggles were there, and parents and teens. Though the parents, they consider that they are close to their children, but actually the students or their children are not revealing any of these traumas either to their parents or their teachers, not out of rebellion, but from fear of judgment, lack of trust, or emotional alienation. So this point we have to look forward, and by keeping in mind the points that theory, interpersonal theory, this thwarted belongingness, and this perceived burdensomeness may lead to suicide. And here, episode 12, we can see trauma, guilt, and burdensomeness. And psychological markers are these, that is, Hannah offer to help her parents financially is dismissed. And they say that it is our issue and not your issue, and we don't want your money. And blamed for losing money, and she internalizes failure, and she thought that no matter what I did, I let people down. People means her parents. And her mother's casual response to her night work reflects emotional unavailability. And there, Joiner's theory comes there. Perceived burdensomeness, that is a belief that one causes pain to loved ones. And thwarted belongingness, increasing isolation from friends and families. So here, last episode 12, we can see the trauma as a tipping point where the sexual assault done by Bryce, a brutal event that reinforces her emotional numbness. So here comes Joiner's third factor, that is acquired capability. That is, repeated trauma habituates Hannah to pain, making death less frightening. So that point, a person, especially a school-going child, definitely think about doing killing oneself. And episode 3, again final cry for help, that we can see nobody wants to die, and they definitely look for the last chance. So Hannah also went to Mr. Potter as last hope and pleads to be rescued. But instead of giving be a listener, he asked a lot of questions to her, and questions her account of rape instead of validating it. So that is a very important area, that the academic counselor's job role has to be analyzed. It can be analyzed there. And there, join us critical insight. Most suicidal individuals wait for someone to stop them. So the question is, when an academic counselor or the parents or the school authorities, do they have a responsibility to look after their children, their students' mental health? Is it an important area that has to be analyzed? So, and acquired capability comes trauma and invalidation equal to diminished fear of death. And Hannah waits outside the office after meeting the academic counselor and hoping he will stop her. But nobody came there, and the silence confirms her belief she is utterly alone. So here comes that I am concluding, that is Hannah Baker's death. Actually, is it a systematic failure? So it is not caused by one event. It took almost a second year only. She committed suicide. So 2 years continuously she was either bullied, or she was accused, or she was alone, and no one was there to ask him or to be friend with her. So, and by repeated validation and neglect and silenced cries, and she asked for help, was ignored at every turn. Her story is a reminder when someone says, I don't care anymore. And we must lean on, not pull away. 13 reasons why sparkled global conversation on these three, that is mental health, bullying and sexual assault, suicide and adolescent trauma. Despite controversy, it illuminated real teen struggles in both physical and digital space. So, technology definitely connects, but it also isolates. So, cyberbullying, social comparison, and digital silence are new battlegrounds for mental health. So, we must listen for the echoes of silence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss, for presenting a very interesting topic. And let me call Arna Gupta and Srijan Chattopadhyay. The murder of Roger occurred as a study of the problem of psychology. Is Arna Gupta present here?
Yes, sir, we are present.
Okay, Miss, you can start presenting your paper.
Okay, sir, thank you.
sir, is the screen visible?
Not yet. It did not come in the screen. Okay, it's coming. Okay, it's visible.
Uh, okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, we can hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted to have this opportunity to present our paper here today in this international conference. Myself, Srijani Chattopadhyay, and my co-presenter is Arna Gupta. Both of us are postgrad students from Bhairab Ganguly College, West Bengal State University. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is a detective novel by the British writer Agatha Christie, which was published in June 1926. As you can see, the title of our paper is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd as a study of the problem of psychology. So, we thought to analyze how Agatha Christie uses the psychological complexity to deepen character development and subvert traditional expectations in detective fiction. How themes like guilt, deception, and social control contribute to both the mystery and its resolution. Okay, so quickly moving to the next slide. Yes. Who doesn't know this lady? But as the presenter, it's my duty to introduce Agatha Christie in front of all of you. She's often called the Queen of Crime or the Queen of Mystery, and the era in which she wrote is often called the Golden Age of detective fiction. She wrote the world's longest running play, which was, of course, a record-breaking play of that day. The murder mystery, named The Mousetrap. It had been performed in the West End Theatre of London since 1952. You can have a glance at the two separate lists of her two most popular detective series. The most thrilling Etude Poirot series in the left-hand side, and in the right-hand side, the popular Miss Marple series, from which our favorite Mithin Mashi of Suchitra Bhattacharya is inspired. Now the presentation is over to my co-presenter, Arna Gupta.
Okay, so I'm audible, I guess. Are we audible?
Yes, audible.
Okay. Okay, so firstly we'll talk about the character of Dr. Shepard, who is not only the narrator but also a high-functioning criminal, highly manipulative and calculative. Like many criminals, he also possesses some common traits. Firstly, he is an unreliable narrator who stays in deception. He creates his own manipulated version of the reality. He doesn't outright lies, but molds the truth. Secondly, another very significant trait we find in criminals, that is the lack of remorse, as well as the mental justification of committing that crime. In Freudian term, which is a defense mechanism that we all have, but without conscience, that's pretty much dangerous. They want to portray that they are the victim and it's their logical necessity. And the third one, another very significant one, which is the thrill of outsmarting others, like Shepard tries to challenge Poirot. They are desperate to prove themselves superior through these kind of unethical acts. They also enjoy the crime. For example, the youngest serial killer, Amarjit Sada, I remember an example from Punjab, India. He said when he was confronted by the police, he used to enjoy the girls when they used to cry when he killed them. He used to enjoy that cry. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Now let us come to the reasons of those threats. Firstly, though they are not really a victim of their situation, rather they are passionate about the crime, but it's also true that sometimes there is something that triggers their psychopathy or criminal mindset. And here it is Shepard's financial issues. Secondly, as I mentioned, the thrill of outsmarting others, and I'll add to that that they usually get a pleasure in that kind of thinking that they're superior. they enjoy, like I said, giving the example of Amarjeet. And thirdly, it's their emotional detachment and lack of remorse that makes them like this. Like serial killer Raman Raghav, another instance, when he was confronted by the police, he was absolutely like out of any kind of remorse. Okay, so now we'll discuss the theoretical relevances of these problems. Like we can relate Shepard's psyche, this kind of criminal psychopathic mindset, with Freud's structural model of our mind. As we see, Shepard's dark id drives him to the murder. His ego rather conceals it, and most importantly, his superego or his conscience is absolutely missing, and that in fact differentiates him from the other two characters we are going to talk about, and which is and that is why Poirot asserts he is given, if he is given the chance, he will murder again maybe. Secondly, we often see that many criminals have a very respectable public appearance, hiding or shadowing their darker self, like Shepard does have as well. So it's relevant to Jung's shadow archetype. Like in a recent series, I remember from which I'm using another example. There is a girl, Shampuna, who says that when a criminal has a white public appearance, then it's very difficult to deal with them. Thirdly, and very importantly, we see a psychology in the criminals. That is, that they seek to show them superior very desperately, because they are like they have an inferiority complex under that, as Adler posits. Like for example, I remember a South Indian movie, Ratsasan, where the boy kills just to feel superior in front of those who once bullied him for his inferiority. So there is an inferiority complex under that kind of seeking superiority. And lastly, I can say that, like Shakespeare's Iago, Shepard is a highly calculative and manipulative criminal. Okay, now let us come to Mrs. Ferrers. Unlike Shepard, she has a conscience, though she consumes poison physically. But the main aspect that mentally poisons her is her guilt of murdering her husband. This kind of people, even they escape the legal punishment, cannot escape from their conscience. Another thing that additionally leads her to suicide, that is the blackmail by Shepard. People who are blackmailed think they're in a trap which they can never escape. So ultimately, what she does is killing herself, as they find this kind of victim of blackmail or guilt find suicide as the only escape. Okay, now we'll discuss the reasons behind this. As we already know that her guilt is about murdering her husband, and as I already explained, that the helplessness of the people who are blackmailed. And now there is another very important thing, and I think nowadays we talk about this very much, that the suicidal people or the people with suicidal tendency need mental or emotional support. But Mrs. Ferrers didn't have that, which leads her to death. And now again, we will discuss the theoretical relevances. We can clearly see a death drive in Mrs. Ferrers in Freudian terms, which is the thanatos, as we know that Freud gives the idea of eros, the life drive, and thanatos, the death drive. Also, in Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, we see in the third stage we should overcome our guilt, and last or eighth stage we should come in terms with our past. But both of these are missing in Mrs. Ferrers. And now, lastly, we'll discuss about Caroline, her psychology behind gossiping. She basically uses gossip as a weapon to assert social power or stay relevant, being somebody who knows everything before others and can inform others about that. And now the reason behind this is like being an unmarried woman at that time, she lacked the conventional definition of authority or status. So she tried to get that from gossip. It gives her a validation as well. She also has a fear of being left out, for which she gossiped to be in the center of the conversation. And also there is another very important thing, that is this habit gives her a dopamine rush or psychological pleasure. And now, lastly, we'll discuss again the theoretical relevances, the theoretical frameworks that we can relate it with. Firstly, as per Skinner's operant conditioning theory, we can say that the validation she gets from people through this gossip works as a very positive reinforcement. And if she has stopped, she would have faced social exclusion. For social inclusions, she does that. So that could be a negative reinforcement. And through Piaget's theory, we can understand that Caroline's moral reasoning of serving justice or finding the truth through gossip. Anyways, lastly, and very importantly, unlike Dr. Shepard and Mrs. Ferrers, it isn't that harmful, and rather it has a positive side, as Gilbert and Huber points out, that gossip empowered women in patriarchal texts. So now we are done of the characterizations, and now we are here to conclude.
Okay, so it's time for wrapping it up. This study aims to show that Christie's work goes beyond plot-driven entertainment, offering a nuanced exploration of the human mind. It encourages the readers to reconsider how crime fiction can reflect psychological truths and challenge moral assumptions about guilt, justice, and identity. Through these complex characterizations, Christie is trying to make us understand what are the different types and extents of the problems, and how we can stop these problems by changing those reasons influencing it. But she's also showing that when it exceeds a certain level, it can't be changed, or no catharsis can happen. So, to be aware, before it reaches that level, she's also highlighting how the presence and absence of conscience is influencing the possibility of making a change or the process of catharsis. Uh, so, this much for today. Thank you all for your heartily cooperation. Any kind of questions, suggestions, and as well as observations are gladly invited. And these are our email addresses through which you can always reach out to us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for presenting your paper. Let me say something briefly. The valedictory session and concluding remarks will be made in. You can see the link on the same link with inauguration session link in session A, and you can join that the valedictory session and concluding remarks in the same link for making an inaugural session link. So then let me conclude that this presentation and this group will be ending. Thank you for your participation. Thank you. You can leave this site, then you can rejoin it the next the other one.